All right, so I want to go through types of innovation that actually matter. So if you don't know me, I am Professor Maslach. I'm Associate Professor of Innovation Strategy and Entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out that I want to pay the favor for to help you out. So often what we're talking about with innovation is some sort of thing that solves a problem that we might have. And whether it's successful or not depends on how big of a problem that it's solving and how much we're going to value that particular problem. I think that's a super important thing. But we often talk about different types of innovation. So going into different sort of degrees or elements of what innovation actually means. So I'm going to talk about these different types of innovation, sort of the different traits or characteristics of innovation. There's lots of them, but these are really common. So, the first one is based on novelty to the extent that it's actually different. What does that mean when an innovation is actually different? Well, it's solving a problem that is unique, or the solution that we have to that particular problem is much different than we currently have, right? So we have what is a radical innovation that is very different. Or an incremental one that is kind of just incrementally changing something that we already know. That solution that it provides is just something that's slightly different than what we already have. Now, we also have innovation based on complexity, and an innovation that's based on complexity is thinking of to what extent, how hard it actually is to change this innovation, because you can think of like how much things overlap when you actually have to change that thing. So one of them being architectural innovation. And you could look up, there's different scholars. Rebecca Henderson has studied this for, she's got some good work in this area. But thinking about, how if it's architectural, it means that it's a system change. It's really difficult to change this thing versus a component of that particular system, right? So one little tiny thing that changes within that particular system. And then you also have to what degree is that innovation sort of changing over time, and to what degree is it actually improving over time, right? So we have what is called the sustaining versus disruptive innovation. So Christensen was what talked about this originally, but it's really thinking about like how quickly things are changing, right? Like some innovations change very quickly, and they go from something that's not great and people don't really care about it to something that's actually pretty good and sort of changes an industry. That's what a disruptive innovation is. It completely changes the industry because nobody really expected it. But the sustaining one is the one that sort of stays the same. It sort of pays the bills of the of the innovator or of the firm or whoever is actually creating this innovation. It is as good as sort of sustaining in the marketplace, and that's an important one. Another one is based on to the extent that the ecosystem around it actually matters, right? And we're actually talking about this a little bit more, and there's lots of people sort of studying the ecosystem around different innovations. So that's an important thing, is it's central to the ecosystem. So are there other, things that are interacting with it? So it's kind of like that architectural, but it's really talking about all the other players that are involved, right? Does it actually change the ecosystem, or, is it helping out, or, is it complementary to the ecosystem? Or, is there a platform that you're building where the platform itself is sort of central to many different players that are not within the firm, or, that's aiding, other different players? Facebook is a perfect example of this. And that's a super important one. And then, the last sort of characteristic that I would point out is, who's actually innovating and who is thinking of this thing. So is it what is called the lead user, or a user that's actually creating this thing, that they're working with it and they're working with a problem and they're like, man, I don't know what to do with this thing. I'm going to create my own solution. So they create their own solution. Or is it more like a top-down thing where the company itself is creating an innovation that nobody else has thought about before, right? So those are really important characteristics that you can sort of look at different elements of them, and they can all be interrelated. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're all independent, right? You can have a radical innovation that's architectural. It's also a disruptive innovation. It's also sort of central to a larger ecosystem, and it was developed by a user. right? All those things kind of can relate to each other, and it's important to think about those in terms of, what it means to innovate within a particular area. And there's lots of sort of different elements of these. And we have to think that these traits, we're always thinking and looking at different traits as only a few of them. There's lots more to study in this area. So, go check it out. Watch some of my YouTube channel and stuff and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, if you want to learn more or, take an innovation course, you're probably going to learn some. So anyways, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye. Oh, give me one of those.